Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's webinar. It is going to be all about confidence, energy, and focus. And I'm going to jump right in. And I'm going to say, all right, before we get into anything heavy, I want to wake the room up for a moment. To kick off this webinar, I've got 5 very simple true or false questions for you. There's no prizes, no trick answers, but your responses will tell you a lot about what's going on with your confidence, your energy, and your focus right now. So I'll read the statement, and I want you to type T for true or F for false in the chat. Don't overthink it. Your first instinct is usually the correct one. Are you ready? Let's play. The first question is, if I could just reset properly, take leave, and finally catch up with sleep, I'll feel like myself again. Type true or false, T or F in the comment line. There's 2. Oh, a lot of trues, falses coming through now. That's good. Let's see. What does it say? This feels true, but in most cases, it's false. Rest helps exhaustion, but burnout isn't just tiredness. Rest help exhaustion, but burnout isn't just tiredness. It's a deeper system-wide collapse. That's why people come back from leave, like we all did just now, feeling briefly better, and then crash again within weeks. If rest alone worked, this webinar wouldn't exist, and neither would the burnout industry. So the next question is, confidence, focus, and energy are personality traits. You either have them or you don't. True or false? False, false, true, false. Okay, let's see. This is false, even though burnout convinces you that it's true. Confidence, energy, and focus are not traits. They are signals from your nervous system and identity. When burnout progresses, those signals get distorted, and people assume that they've lost something permanently. Let's go to question 3. This is just a tough season. Once work calms down, everything will go back to normal. Sounds familiar? Is that true or false? False, 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 false. Okay. This is true in theory, but false in reality. Burnout doesn't automatically reverse when pressure drops, especially once identity erosion has started. Many people wait for calm, but never fully arrives. And in the meantime, their baseline keeps lowering. That's how burnout quietly carries itself from one year into the next. Question 4. Other people seem to be coping better than I am, so this must be a me problem. True or false? True, false, false, false. This is false, but it's one of burnout's favorite lies. High-functioning burnout looks like competence from the outside and chaos from the inside. The people you think are coping often just doesn't hit the same stage yet, and we'll get to the 12 stages of burnout a bit later, or they are masking better. Burnout isolates by making you think that you are the exception, not the pattern. And the last question, if I slow down or stop pushing, everything that I've built, my reputation, my role, my stability, will fall apart. True or false? False, false, false. This one lands deep because it feels true when burnout has fused with your identity. When pushing becomes who you are, stopping feels dangerous, not restful. And that's the moment burnout stops being about work and starts not being about survival. And this is where we need to talk about what's really happening. Because this fear doesn't come from weakness. It comes from a very specific stage of burnout that most people never realize that they are in. Let's talk about the pain underneath that fear and how burnout slowly starts stealing who you are long before it ever showed up on a medical form. If you took a break and you felt better for a moment, you got through a meeting without losing it, and you started journaling or meditating again, it should be clear by now that you need more than just a temporary fix. You need a complete way to reclaim your confidence, your energy, and your focus, and step into the stronger, more confident version of yourself that is 2026 deserves. So what are you doing? You're trying to fix yourself on your own. That's smart, but risky. Many who try to rebuild on their own end up disengaging from the people around them, feeling disconnected, anxious, mentally foggy, struggling to set boundaries, and caught up in loops of temporary fixes that never stick. It usually requires ignoring the deeper identity level impact of burnout. And who knows if you can fully trust yourself again? That means instead of losing focus at work, feeling flat, crashing after temporary bursts of energy, or constantly questioning yourself, you could finally break the cycle, understand your burnout triggers, regain certainty, and step into a version of yourself that thrives instead of merely survive. By the end of this webinar, I'll show you exactly how to do that. But what about believing burnout doesn't steal your identity? Forget losing focus, pushing
Why?
through.
The question I'm asking, why you doing that? Why?
Trevor, can you mute your line, please? Thank you. Forget losing focus, pushing through, or feeling disconnected. You'll end up burning out, unsure who you are or where you fit in. Imagine if you could reclaim your confidence, your energy, and your focus without feeling like you've lost control of your life. By the end of tonight's session, you'll see exactly how that's possible for you. And then there's the biggest blocker. If you don't address burnout, it will not magically go away. This, more than any other, is what stops you from truly breaking the pattern and stepping into a life you control. However, what if we could turn that limitation into a massive advantage? Finally breaking the cycle of exhaustion, anxiety, and self-doubt, while learning to identify your burnout triggers before they take hold. So instead of fighting against admitting that burnout is real and systemic, you're actually rebuilding your confidence, your energy, your focus, and your identity with less effort than ever before. By webinar's end, you'll understand exactly how this shows up in your life, how to interrupt that identity collapse before it costs more, and how 2026 can be the year that you finally feel in control, strong, and energized again. Now, when it comes to burnout, and more specifically, like I said, the 12 stages of burnout and how it quietly erodes your identity, here are some of the questions that should already be on your mind. Question 1. How easy is it to move from survival mode into self-led living and reclaim your confidence, your energy, and your sense of self? What was the smartest way to stop reacting to pressure and start making choices without blowing up your life or your career in the process? What should you realistically expect if you follow an identity-led burnout recovery approach instead of pushing harder or hoping rest will magically fix things? How quickly can you go from feeling anxious and self-doubting to calm, clear, and internally grounded again? And the last one, how much effort does it really take to stop outsourcing your self-worth and finally trust your own voice? I've got the answers, and honestly, they're better than what you'll ever find anywhere else. Now, how would you like to reclaim yourself and lead your life from power instead of survival? Because you can, and there's more. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Wouldn't it be amazing if you started reclaiming your confidence and you didn't just feel better, you also felt calm in situations that used to trigger you, trusted your decisions without spiraling, set boundaries without guilt, and stopped being emotionally hijacked by work, people, and pressure? That's not coping. That's self-leadership. And because what we are convinced covering today is so important to your confidence, your nervous system, and who you are becoming in 2026, I asked myself something very intentional. What can I give them to make sure that this doesn't sound good, but actually lands? At the end of this webinar, I'm giving you the 30-day momentum plan, a practical, grounded roadmap designed to help you move out of reaction mode and into self-led action, step by step. No overwhelm, no pressure, just clarity, structure, momentum, so that shifts today doesn't fade tomorrow, and it's yours completely free. My name is Sandra, and I'm not a motivational speaker or a mindset coach. And I'm definitely not someone who's never burnt out telling you what to do. I'm just a woman who spent years performing at a high level, where slowly burning herself out and quietly while everybody else thought I was coping, until I discovered something that changed everything. Burnout isn't an energy problem. It is an identity crisis. What that insight led to is this. I built a reputation as a go-to burnout specialist for professionals in toxic and high-pressure environments. And I've developed an identity-led framework that restores confidence, energy, and focus in a way that lasts. More importantly, I've helped people move from anxious, reactive, and self-doubting to calm, clear, and self-led. I've worked with lecturers, professors, hospitality managers, and ICU managers, and organizations focused on preventing burnout, helping people reclaim confidence and clarity in roles where pressure is real and the stakes are high. I was also interviewed by Peter Ndoro on surviving a toxic workplace for his YouTube channel, After 50 with Peter Ndoro, not because I have a theory, but because I've lived it. I've seen firsthand what happens when burnout is ignored. I've seen what's possible when it's addressed properly. And my motto is simple. I never coach on a topic that I've not experienced myself. And the results my client creates, they start quietly. At first, the wins are intentional, but powerful. They stop second-guessing every thought. They recognize when anxiety is speaking instead of truth. They feel calmer in situations that used to send them spiraling. They sleep better, breathe deeper, think clearer. And that alone feels like relief, like coming up for air after months of holding their breath. And then the confidence returns. They speak up in meetings instead of shrinking. They stop apologizing for having needs, opinions, or boundaries. They say no without over-explaining. And remember, no is a full sentence. They trust their instincts again and act on them. This is usually the moment they say, I feel like myself again, and maybe for the first time. Next, their energy stabilizes. They stop running and adrenaline on caffeine. Their focus improves. Brain fog lifts. They stop chasing at the end of the day and start having energy for their actual life, not just work. Work stops draining them dry, and then the external changes begin. They hold boundaries without guilt. They navigate difficult conversations with clarity and authority. They stop tolerating toxic behavior from managers, colleagues, even family. They either reclaim power where they are, or they make strategic, confident exits. No panic, no burning bridges, no self-led decisions, and finally, the biggest result. They no longer define themselves by burnout, fear, or survival. They know who they are. They trust themselves. They lead their lives and careers with alignment instead of exhaustion. They don't just cope better, they live differently. Why do I share this with you today? Because I'm tired of watching capable, intelligent, professional people quietly disappear inside systems that were never designed to protect them. I'm tired of seeing burnout framed as a personal failure instead of the identity level wound that it really is. I know I can help. I know this matters, this work matters. So if today helps you reclaim even one piece of yourself, your voice, your clarity, your confidence, then this does exactly what it's meant to do. So, are you ready to win today? This is a shift that changes everything. On this webinar, you'll discover how to feel like yourself again, calm, confident, and in control, in a way that restores self-trust under pressure. So you stop abandoning yourself when it matters most, not by pushing harder, not by fixing yourself, and definitely not by losing your career, your voice, and your values, but by focusing on restoring self-trust and internal safety. You'll stop repeating burnout cycles and start changing the color and the course of your life. And once that happens, bigger things become possible. You begin making decisions from certainty instead of fear. You reclaim confidence, energy, and focus in a way that doesn't collapse under pressure. You move from survival mode into self-led living, and you lead your life and career from alignment instead of exhaustion. And here's the part most people miss. When it comes to burnout recovery and real change, this is what matters. You turn it around, building confidence first, then energy, and then focus. That's the difference. If I were to show you exactly how to use identity restoration, nervous system regulation, and awareness, boundaries, and emotional literacy to stop abandoning yourself under pressure, would you commit to taking action on what we covered today? Because once self-trust becomes automatic, everything else you've done, began trying so hard to hold, finally starts to hold you. And that's where real change begins. I'll walk you through the 4 steps process to stop burnout by restoring identity and nervous system safety. So you rebuild self-trust under pressure and stop abandoning yourself. This is not about coping better. It's about reversing the sequence that caused burnout in the first place. Step 1 is to restore nervous system safety. Burnout doesn't start with exhaustion. It starts with chronic threat, pressure, and toxicity that keeps the nervous system in survival mode. In the early to mid stages of burnout, confidence begins to erode quietly. Your body stays alert, your system stays braced, and your choice disappears. Until safety is restored, confidence cannot hold, energy cannot stabilize, and focus cannot return. This is where most people go wrong. They try to perform their way out of burnout. Instead, this step teaches the body if it's no longer under constant threat, so regulation becomes possible and self-trust has somewhere to land. Step 2 is stop doing performance first. Most burnout advice skips straight to productivity, resilience, boundaries, and performance fixes. But in the middle stage of burnout, performance is already running on borrowed fuel. When people try to optimize output before restoring identity and safety, your confidence collapses further, your energy drains faster, and your focus becomes unreliable. This is why high performers feel like they're doing all the right things and still getting worse. Burnout recovery fails when performance is prioritized over identity. And step number 3 is the burnout as an identity collapse. Here's the turning point. When people see burnout through the 12 stages, something shifts. They realize that burnout isn't random, it's patterned. And those patterns follow a very specific collapse. Confidence erodes first. Self-doubt, people-pleasing, loss of voice. Energy drains second. Fatigue, anxiety, emotional exhaustion. And then your focus collapses. Your brain fog increases. You have indecision and you feel overwhelmed. So the 12 stages of burnout as a directional map. Most people don't sit in one stage. They hover between 2 or 3, depending on the pressure, the environment, and the support. The purpose of this map isn't to label you. It is to show you where the collapse started. Once you know where confidence broke, where energy destabilized, and why focus disappeared, you stop trying to fix the wrong thing. So here's a snapshot of the 12 stages. See where you can find yourself in any of these 12 stages. Stage 1 is proving yourself. At the beginning, the person tries very hard to be helpful and to do things right because Being praised feels safe and warm inside. Notice as we go through the stages that the stages pick up in tempo and become more critical as we go through them. Stage 2 is overcommitment. They keep saying yes to more and more things because they don't want to disappoint anyone. Stage 3 is self-neglect. They stop resting, eating properly, or playing because other people's needs feel more important than their own. Stage 4 is the boundary erosion. The person forgets how to say stop, so there's no quiet time left just for them. And stage 5 is the values conflict. Something inside feels uncomfortable because they are doing things that don't match with who they really are. Stage 6 is the chronic stress. The body thinks there's danger all the time, so it never gets a chance to calm down and feel safe. Stage 7 is the withdrawal and emotional blunting. To protect yourself, the heart goes a bit numb, so it doesn't have to feel as much all the time. Stage 8 is the identity confusion. The person forgets what they like, what matters to them, and who they are when they're not being useful. Stage 9 is the learned helplessness. After trying for a long time with no relief, they stop believing things can change. And stage 10 is cynicism and disengagement. They pull away and stop trying because caring feels too painful or tiring. Stage 11 is the collapse. The body or the mind says stop very loudly because it's been ignored for too long. And stage 12 is the identity breakdown. The person realizes they cannot keep going on who they were, and something now needs to be built more gentle and more real. And the last step, step 4, is starting to build the self-trust. Insight alone doesn't require burnout. Embodiment does. In the later stages of recovery, sustainability depends on one thing: rebuilding self-trust under pressure. This step focuses on small, daily, identity-aligned actions where people pause instead of react, listen instead of override, choose instead of comply, and each micro-action restores confidence first. I can trust myself. Then energy. My system stabilizes. And then focus. Clarity returns naturally. This is how people stop abandoning themselves. Not once, but as consistently. Burnout doesn't reverse through force. It reverses through self-led consistency built on safety. And this method restores confidence first. This is the big picture. You have to get it in the correct sequence. Confidence first, then energy, and then focus. When that sequence is correct, burnout stops repeating. Self-trust becomes automatic, and performance becomes sustainable again. That's the identity-led reset. Before we go any further, I want to pause for a moment, not to teach you something new, but let you experience something different. You don't need to fix anything. You don't need to get it right. You don't even need to close your eyes if that doesn't feel comfortable. Just stay with me. If burnout has taught you anything, it's how to brace. Brace for the next email, the next meeting, the next demand. So let's start there. Right now, notice your body where you're sitting without changing anything yet. Just notice where you are holding tension. For most people, it's the jaw, or the shoulders, or the belly. You don't need to scan your whole body. Just pick one place. Now, here's the important part. We are not going to force it to relax. We're just going to interrupt the brace. If it's your jaw, let your teeth separate slightly. If it's your shoulders, let them drop just a centimeter. And if it's your belly, allow it to soften, even 5%. That's it. Notice what happens when you stop holding, even a little. You might feel your breath change. You might feel warmth or heaviness. Or you might just feel less effort. There's no right sensation. What matters is this: your body just received a message. And that message wasn't everything is perfect. That message was, I don't need to brace right now. And that's what safety feels like. Now notice something else. When the brace softens, even briefly, your mind often follows. Through slowdown, the noise becomes quieter. There's a tiny bit more space between you and the pressure. And that space, that's where self-trust lives. Not in forcing confidence, not in pushing through, but in the moment your body realizes it doesn't have to fight. This is why willpower never fixes burnout. Because burnout isn't about effort. It's about a system that's been stuck in protection mode for too long. And that moment safety returns, choice becomes possible again. Now imagine this isn't something you do once in a webinar. Imagine being able to interrupt that brace in real moments. Before you respond to an email, before you say yes when you mean no, before you override yourself to keep the peace. That's not coping, that's self-leadership. And what you just experienced is the first step in the method I teach. We don't start with performance. We don't start with mindset. We start by teaching the body that it is safe to choose. Because when safety is restored, confidence can return, energy can stabilize, and focus can follow. If something just shifted, even slightly, that's not an accident. That's your system responding to the right sequence. And this is only a fraction of what's becoming possible when identity, nervous system, and self-trust are rebuilt together. Here's what we covered together today so far. Firstly, you've discovered why rest alone doesn't fix burnout. Because burnout isn't exhaustion. It's an identity level collapse that rest can't touch on its own. You saw how confidence, energy, and focus aren't personality traits. They are signals from your nervous system and sense of self. And burnout scrambles those sections. You've realized why this is just a tough season is one of the most dangerous lies, because burnout carries itself forward when identity erosion has already started. You saw yourself in the 12 stages of burnout, not as a label, but as a map. And for the first time, you could say, that makes sense. I walked you through why performance first fixes keep failing you. Productivity, resilience, and just push through only makes burnout deeper when safety and identity aren't restored first. You felt the shift when we interrupted the brace, even slightly, and noticed how your body softened, your mind quietened, and choice became available again. You experienced what self-trust feels like, not forced confidence, not willpower, but that subtle moment when your system realizes it doesn't have to fight. You saw how burnout stops repeating when the sequence is correct, when safety returns, confidence stabilizes, energy flows, and focus comes back naturally. And you realize this isn't about coping better. It's about moving from survival mode into self-led living, where you stop abandoning yourself under pressure. And the most important part, none of this required you to fix yourself or become someone else or push harder. It required the right order, and we're only scratching the surface. Hasn't it been a relief to finally see that burnout explained in a way that doesn't blame you and makes sense if what you have been feeling for so long? Can you feel how different it is to realize that nothing is wrong with you? That your confidence, your energy, and your focus didn't disappear. They were interrupted by survival mode. Wouldn't you agree that just seeing where you are in the 12 stages and understanding why these things started collapsing in the order they did already feels grounding? Are you starting to realize how much pressure you've been carrying simply trying to push, perform, and cope without ever showing the right sequence? And wouldn't you agree that if burnout didn't happen overnight, these rebuilding confidence, energy, and self-trust in the right order is not only possible, it's logical. That's why I'd love to show you the next step. I want to say this clearly before we go any further. I've complete confidence that you could take what you've covered today, apply it on your own, and start seeing real shifts. And if that were your only option, it would absolutely be worth walking this path. But let me ask you something. What if there was another option? One, where you didn't have to figure this out alone. One, where you're not trying to self-lead through every pattern that burnout created. One where we did this together. What if I didn't just teach you the framework, but played an active role in your results? What if I carried responsibility for your progress, not just inspiration for today? Do you think in that situation, I would bring every resource that I have, every insight, every tool, every layer of support to stack that deck in your favor? And if something like that existed, would you want to hear about it? That's why it's with great care and genuine excitement that I want to introduce you to Becoming You. Becoming You wasn't created because people needed more tools, more knowledge, or more motivation. It was created because I learned the hard way that knowledge wasn't the problem. I did everything right. I read every book. I tried the strategies. I understood burnout intellectually. And yet, under pressure, everything still collapsed. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because my nervous system didn't feel safe enough to let me be who I knew I was. That was the moment that everything changed for me. I realized burnout isn't an energy issue. It's not a discipline issue. It's not a mindset issue. It's what happens when identity erodes under chronic pressure and no one teaches you how to rebuild self-esteem from the inside out. I made myself a promise then, and I've kept it ever since. I never coach on a topic I have not lived, survived, and rebuilt myself. Becoming You exists because of this promise. At its core, Becoming You is a safe, structured space to rebuild self-trust without pushing, performing, or forcing yourself to be someone you are not. This isn't about fixing you. It's about creating enough internal safety for the real you to come back online. It is for the professional who's capable, intelligent, and deeply committed, but exhausted from holding it all together. And for the professional who doesn't want to quit their life or burn it down, but knows that they can keep abandoning themselves to survive it. Becoming You is where we stop asking, how do I cope better? And start asking, how do I lead myself again? This is where confidence is rebuilt before energy, and where energy stabilizes before focus, where self-trust becomes the default, not something that you have to work at under pressure. It's calm, it's grounded, and it's designed to support you while real life is still happening. And now that you know what Becoming You truly is, here's what you get when you sign up for Becoming You today. Module 1 is the Identity Reclamation Core. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that you are not bracing anymore. You haven't changed jobs. Nothing dramatic has happened. Your life looks the same on the outside, but internally, something is different. You are not second-guessing every thought before you speak. You are not scanning for approval. You are not quietly asking yourself, am I overreacting or am I allowed to feel this? And that's when you realize something important. One of the hardest parts of burnout was never the exhaustion. It was losing trust in yourself. You used to know where you stood. You used to have an internal yes and no that you could rely on. And somewhere along the line, through pressure, compromise, and survival, that clarity got blurred. That's the part burnout really talks about. And it's the part everyone and everything else depends on. That's why the first component of Becoming You is called the Identity Reclamation Core. This isn't mindset work. It's not motivation. It's not confidence tricks. It's about rebuilding your internal authority so self-trust becomes your default again. Inside this module, you start to see exactly how burnout eroded your sense of self, which is incredibly relieving because it means that you can stop blaming yourself and start rebuilding intentionally. You reconnect with your own voice, your values, and your instincts, so decisions stop feeling heavy and loaded. And through small, real moments, you begin choosing yourself again, not loudly, not dramatically, just consistently. Speaking subtle but powerful happens. You speak without apologizing. You notice pressure, but it doesn't hijack you. You feel steady in your decisions, even when others disagree. You don't feel tougher. You don't feel louder. You feel clearer. And for the first time in a long time, you're not asking, who should I be right now? You already know. This is the piece I rebuilt first, because without it, nothing else held. And it's the same place my clients feel the shift before everything external changes. They don't become different people. They remember who they are. So let me ask you this. How good would it feel to stop questioning yourself and start trusting the person you already are, especially after everything you've been through? Earlier, we said burnout is an identity crisis, not an energy problem. This is where that crisis gets resolved. And even if this is the only thing that you get from becoming you, it will change how everything else shows up. Have you noticed how even when you know what to do, even when you want to respond calmly, confidently, or clearly, your body sometimes just won't cooperate? Your chest tightens, your thoughts race. There's urgency, pressure, even panic when nothing is technically wrong. And suddenly, you are reacting again. This is where so many capable, intelligent people get stuck. Because burnout doesn't live in your thoughts, it lives in your nervous system. Earlier, we talked about bracing, how your body stays on high alert even after the original pressure has passed. And until that system feels safe again, confidence can't hold, clarity can't stabilize, and self trust collapses under stress. This is the piece most people never address. That's why the second module of Becoming You is your nervous system safety and regulation. It's not about forcing calm, because forced calm doesn't last. Safety does. Inside this module, you learn how to recognize when your system is in fight, flight, or freeze, and how to gently interrupt survival mode so you can respond instead of react. You stabilize the body before you try to solve the problem, which finally gives confidence, energy, and focus somewhere to land. And this is not theoretical. These are simple and practical tools you can use in real life during meetings, conversation, and decisions without everyone even knowing what you are doing. Imagine moving through your day without that constant background tension. Emails don't spike your heart rate. Conversations don't hijack your system. You feel things, but they don't run you. You pause before reacting. You breathe without thinking again. And you feel present instead of braced. Not because life got easier, but because your body stopped living like it was under attack. And why people can finally hold boundaries. Why confidence stopped collapsing under pressure. Why focus returns without force. Because once the body feels safe, the mind no longer has to fight. So ask yourself this. How different would your life feel if pressure no longer detected your reactions? If calm wasn't something that you had to achieve, but something your system naturally returned to? And most effective leaders and high performers don't push through stress. They regulate first and lead from there. This component will change how you experience every single day. Let me name something that you might recognize. You know what your boundary is. You can feel it in your body. But the moment guilt shows up, or fear, or authority, it collapses. You say yes when you mean no. You soften what you want to say. You over-explain. You backpedal. And later, you replay the conversation in your head, thinking, why didn't I just hold my ground? Boundaries fail because you are trying to hold them without internal safety. It's like trying to keep a door closed when someone is leaning on it with their full weight. Eventually, something gives. And this is where power leaks, quietly, repeatedly, exhaustingly. That's why the third module of Becoming You is the Boundary Intelligence Framework. This isn't about being tougher, colder, or more assertive. It's about understanding why boundaries collapse and installing the internal conditions that allow them to hold. Inside this module, you learn why guilt, fear, and authority hijack your nervous system in the first place. So you stop personalizing boundary failure. You stabilize your internal no before you worry about what to say, which means your words land calmly and cleanly instead of defensively. You also learn how to stay grounded when discomfort shows up, without over-explaining, justifying, or backing down, and how to hold limits in a way that feels firm, respectful, and self-led, not aggressive or reactive. Imagine being in a conversation that used to derail you. Someone pushes, questions you, disagrees, and instead of tightening, scrambling, or explaining yourself in a corner, you stay steady. You don't raise your voice. You don't retreat. You don't betray yourself. You say what needs to be said once, and you mean it. And afterwards, there's no spiral, no regret, no self-criticism, just a quiet sense of, I held myself there. That's real power. That is the point where people tell me, I've set boundaries before, but this is the first time that they actually stuck. Because boundaries don't hold through force, they hold through internal alignment. So ask yourself this: how much energy would you get back if you stopped negotiating with yourself every single time you needed to say no? Earlier we talked about burnout, eroding confidence first. This is one of the main ways it happens, and this is how it stops. This module could change how you show up in every relationship, conversation, and decision. Have you ever tried to fix burnout without really knowing what stage you are in? You rest, and what you need is to rebuild confidence. You push when your system is screaming for regulation. You try to set boundaries when your nervous system can't hold them yet, and then nothing sticks. This is one of the most exhausting parts of burnout, not the fatigue itself, but the confusion, not knowing what to do next. Because without certainty, every effort feels like guesswork. And when guesswork fails, people assume the problem is them. It's not. The problem is trying to fix burnout without a map. That's why the fourth module is Becoming You, and it's the 12 stages burnout diagnostic. It's not about labels. It's not pathology. It's orientation. Inside this module, you pinpoint exactly where you are in the burnout cycle, so you can stop applying the wrong solution to the wrong problem. You see clearly how burnout unfolds in sequence. Confidence erodes first, energy drains second, and focus collapses last. And that alone removes so much shame and self-doubt. More importantly, you finally know what to prioritize now. Without its regulation, identity work, boundaries, or building self-trust, instead of trying to do everything at once and burning yourself out all over again, you also learn the early warning signs. So if you ever start slipping stages again, you can intervene early, before burnout takes hold. Imagine waking up and knowing exactly where you are. You don't spiral asking, am I overreacting? Is this just a bad week? Why can't I handle this anymore? You recognize the pattern. You know what the stage needs, and you know what to do to stop forcing it. You know what you can wait. And that certainty alone changes how you move through your day, because direction creates calm. This diagnostic is built from lived experience, real client patterns, and the reality of high-functioning burnout, not textbook theory. And that's why people say, this explains me better than anything that I've ever read. Not because it labels them, but because it finally orients them. How much energy would you have saved if you stopped guessing and started responding accurately to to what your system needs. The most expensive recovery isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. Have you noticed how the moments that undo you don't happen when you are calm? They happen when you are triggered, when a comment is made, when the tone shifts, when the request crosses a line. And even though you know better, you hear yourself say yes. You go quiet, you explain too much, you react, and you regret it later. Not because you don't know what you want, but because pressure hijacks the moment. Earlier, remember when you interrupted the brace? That tiny pause where your body softened and your choice became possible. That wasn't accidental. That was the doorway to self-trust. And that's why the fifth module of Becoming You is self-trust under pressure. That is where everything that you've rebuilt gets tested and held, not in theory, in real moments. Inside this module, you will learn a simple but powerful sequence. Pause, choose, and lead. You learn how to interrupt the hijack, creating space between trigger and reaction, so pressure no longer decides for you. You practice choosing from who you are, not from fear, guilt, or urgency. And then you learn how to follow through without collapsing, without spiraling, second guessing, or betraying yourself afterwards. This isn't confidence you summon. It's confidence that holds. And you don't train this in isolation. You rehearse it in the exact situations that used to derail you. Conversations, meetings, boundaries, decisions. So when pressure shows up in real life, your system already knows what to do. Imagine the next time the pressure hits. You feel it, but it doesn't run you. You pause. You breathe. You choose deliberately. You speak clearly. You hold the line. And you move forward. And afterwards, there's no crash, no shame, no replaying the moment over and over in your head. Just a quiet certainty. I trusted myself again. That's leadership. Internal first, external second. Knowing who you are is powerful, but trusting yourself under pressure, it was changes your life. How different would your days feel if pressure no longer made your decisions for you? If the moment that used to drain you strengthened your trust in yourself? And the most grounded leaders don't avoid pressure. They train to lead inside it. And even on its own, this skill would be worth everything. Because once you trust yourself under pressure, you stop abandoning yourself. When you put all 5 modules together, identity reclamation, nervous system safety, boundary intelligence, burnout clarity, and self-trust under pressure, you are not learning something new. You are becoming someone who can finally hold themselves, no matter what life brings. So how valuable was all of this? For me, this work allowed me to stop living in survival mode, reclaim my confidence and self-trust, and lead my life and career from certainty instead of fear. And honestly, that makes it worth at least 55,000 Rand because it stops burnout from repeating, your identity being stolen, and making decisions from a safe place. For the people that I've helped, many have told me that it was at least double that because it gave them something that they thought they'd lost forever: certainty, self-trust, and a sense of authority. Janetta Swart put this beautifully. She said, I started seeing Sandra at a very low point in my life. As we journeyed together each week, I saw myself more clearly, and I took responsibility for my decisions that brought me to burnout. I started making life-confirming decisions. As I stopped beating myself up, I regained the joy I lost somewhere along the line, and my way back to a happy person, and that is even better than I was before. Now, to put this into perspective, private coaching or therapy to work through burnout on this level costs 20,000 Rand or more over time without a clear framework or sequence. And organizations regularly pay tens of thousands for leadership or burnout prevention programs that still don't address identity, nervous system safety, or self-trust under pressure. But you are here live, and if you act before this offer expires, you won't pay back. Today, you can join Becoming You for $4,997. One payment, no installments, no pressure. And you can do that by clicking on the link that I will share later to register for this course. That's it. Because this isn't about making something sound expensive. It's about making sure that the cost of staying stuck feels higher than the cost of choosing yourself. But that's not all you are getting. One of the biggest reasons burnout keep repeating isn't because people don't understand what's happening to them. It's because life rushes back in. You leave a webinar feeling clear, grounded, hopeful, and then Monday hits. Emails, meetings, people's pressure, and suddenly that insight fades, not because it wasn't powerful, but because there was nothing to hold it. I never wanted this work to be something that feels good for an hour and then disappears. This is why this bonus exists. Alongside Becoming You, you also receive the 30-day momentum plan. This is a calm, grounded roadmap designed to move you out of reaction mode and into self-led action, one day at a time. Together with the momentum plan, you will also receive the 2026 Reboot Workbook, full of exercises that you could complete at your own pace. And this is important to know. This is not something that I sell. It is a private client-only structure that I've never released publicly before. Inside the 30-day momentum plan, you've given a clear daily rhythm so that you always know what to focus on without overwhelm, pressure, or overthinking. Each day includes small, identity-aligned actions that rebuild confidence first, stabilize energy second, and follows your return naturally. Nothing in this plan relies on motivation or willpower. It paces for your nervous system, not against it. And that's why it works. Progress doesn't spike or crash. It compounds. This isn't about doing more. It's about making sure what shifts today doesn't fade tomorrow. This is the exact 30-day structure that I used myself when rebuilding after burnout, because before I ever taught it. And it's the same framework I've walked private clients through when they needed stability, clarity, and traction, quickly but safely. On its own, this plan could easily stand as a paid resource because it saves months of trials and error and prevents people from slipping straight back into survival mode. But I'm including it in this workbook as bonuses for one simple reason. Certainty without momentum is fragile. So when you step into Becoming You, you are not just learning what to change. You're given the structure to live it calmly, consistently, and on your own terms. And that's how real change holds. Here's my promise to you. I don't want anyone to join Becoming You out of pressure, hope, or fear. I want you to join because it feels right. So I've put in a very simple, very fair guarantee in place. After our first weekly session, you have 5 days to complete the first module. And if you do that, if you go through the material and you give it an honest shot, and you don't feel clearer, calmer, or even more self-trusting, and you don't feel like you got your money's worth, just email me within those 5 days, and I'll give you a 100% refund. No question, no hoops, no defensiveness. It's a do the work and decide guarantee, because I trust this process. I trust what happens when people actually engage with it. And I trust you to know whether it's right for you. So you are not choosing blindly. You are choosing with safety, clarity, and agency, exactly the way I teach. And that's how decisions should be made. I want to be very clear about something important before we go any further. Becoming You is not a self-paced course that you dip into whenever. It is a 5-week live group workshop running after hours on specific dates and times. The first of the 5 sessions kicks off on the 28th of January at 7 p.m. and it runs for the next 4 weeks. Because of the depth of this work and because nervous system safety, trust, and integration matter, I'm intentionally keeping this group very small. We are only accepting 10 people, and I'm doing that on purpose. This isn't about creating hype. It's about safety and personal attention. I kept this at 10 because I want to know who's in the room. I want space to see you, support you, and hold the container properly. So once the group is full, it's full. There's no overflow group. There's no maybe later. This isn't something that you can join at another time or drop into afterwards. This version of Becoming You is only available to webinar attendees, and it's tied to this specific live container. So here's how it works. Enrollment is open now, and it will close as soon as the 10 seats are filled. If you come back later and the seats are gone, the decision has already been made for you. Not because you weren't worthy, but because the container reached capacity. It's me protecting the integrity of the work and the people inside it. If this feels like the right moment, if your body is saying yes, then I'd like you to invite to trust that. Because when the seats are gone, enrollment closes. So this is what you are getting. Becoming You, 5 modules in Becoming You. It's the identity reclamation core. It is the nervous system safety and regulation. It is the boundary intelligence framework and the 12 stages burnout diagnostic, the self-trust and the pressure training. Plus you get the bonus 2026 reboot workbook and a 30-day momentum plan. It is a 5-week group coaching with me personally. And above that, when the course is completed, every single person will receive a 60-minute private coaching call for me to recap. It's not 55,000. It is 4,997, and there's only 10 seats left. So this is the link that you can register on. The link will also be pasted in the comments. So if you are ready and you have any questions, please feel free. Just unmute your line, ask your question, and click on the link. There's the link. Nikki just posted the link, Becoming You. You can go in and you can register for this course. And we will meet each other online on the 28th of January. Are there any calls? Anything I can answer you? Any questions that you have? Nothing? Nobody? Remember, the 10 seats are available until the course is fully booked. Then it is gone forever. If there's no more questions, I'm going to say thank you. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day and have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Sandra,
Hello.
will you be doing the webinar again before the 28th of January?
No, this is the only one, but I am recording. So the recording will be in the D Square community. It will be available in there. So once the recording buffers and uploads, I will add it to the community. I will also share, I will send everybody that attended an email tomorrow, and the link to the D Square community will be shared in there. And you can find the meeting plus all the other recordings of the webinars. You will find it in there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, Sandra.
Yes.
Raquel here.
Hello, Raquel. Are you well?
I need you. So
Awesome. You got
Sandra,
me.
what I wanted to find out is
Yes.
I have decided to relocate myself to the UK.
Okay.
Obviously, the times you say are 7 o'clock, it's South African time.
Yes.
That would mean for now that the UK is 2 hours behind us. So seven,
So is that
it would be
5
be
p.m.?
from 5 o'clock every day.
Okay. Would that be a problem?
No. So I need to keep that in mind. I just wanted to check.
No, that's fine. Raquel, I think when the meeting is scheduled in your calendar and you are in a different time zone and that time zone is set up like that on your laptop, it will automatically convert it to your time
To
zone.
your time, right? Okay.
So on my
All right.
side, it would be 7, and on your side, it would be 5.
Okay. And sorry, I sort of didn't catch the end. How many meetings are there?
5. It's 5 modules. So we will be covering every single module in one meeting.
In one meeting?
Yes. So what I will do is I will send the work material to you beforehand, and
Yes.
we will in a group session, because then you have peer input as well, and that
Right.
is much more potent.
Valuable.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And then we will discuss that module that we've just completed, that everybody filled in. That would be the one, and that would be the training that I would be giving afterwards.
Okay. And the program runs over a period of
5 weeks.
5 weeks. Okay.
Yes.
And we
With
meet once a week.
once a week on a Wednesday. The first one is on the 28th of January, and then it repeats for the next 4 weeks after that.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you, Sandra.
It's an absolute pleasure. And you are going to the UK. We have to talk before then, eh?
Okay, my darling.
Thank you, Raquel. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Anybody else have anything, any questions?
Nee, ek het nie 'n vraag nie. Ek dink dis
Dankie, Amia.
uitstekend gedoen. Baie dankie daarvoor. En dankie dat ek deel kon wees, want dit is meer gepak as enige een van die ander, né?
Het jy dan Bata uitgevind, Amia?
Ja. Want ek kon identifiseer
Ja.
en elke keer wat jy iets gesê het, wat jy iets uitgewys het. Ek moet Engels praat, né? Sorry. So elke keer wat jy iets uitgewys het, kon
Ja.
ek onthou hoe dit was, wat ek gedoen het en ek het die regte pad gevolg. So
Dis
alles wat jy gesê het kon ek identifiseer en dan die roete verder doen en dit was absoluut spot on.
Okay.
Jy's
So
spot
just
on.
for those people on the call, Amia was one of the people that did my toxic workplace course. And that is why she could identify with what she saw in this webinar with what we covered when she did the toxic workplace course. So thank you, Amia. Thank you for your input.
You're welcome. It was really a good one. And thank you for everything. I'll
Thank you
chat
so
with you
much.
later.
Trevor,
See
Amia,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Amia just said that
Bye.
whatever we talked about today, she did, it was covered in the toxic workplace course that she did in the beginning of the year or beginning of last year. So it was touching base. Sorry for that. Anybody else? Okay. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.
You too. Thank you. Bye.